All right, I want to watch this clip from this movie, They Live. It's a classic starring Roddy Piper. So let's watch this. Think about what happens in this clip and think about what's being said here and think about do you recognize anything from this clip.
What's your problem? I said, what's your problem?
How are you today, sir?
Okay, how's it going?
Fine, thank you. Thank you, sir. Here you are, sir. Thank you. Hey, buddy. You gonna pay for that or what?
So this is one of my favorite movies. The whole context of the movie is like basically aliens are running society. Roddy Piper, the scene you see, he finds, his character finds a box of sunglasses. The sunglasses, you put them on and they reveal a couple things. They reveal who the actual aliens are, and in this case, they're they're capitalists. They're the Wall Street dudes or whatever. And it also allows him to see what is being truly said in the media. You know, marry and reproduce, consume, obey, no independent thought. So it's a really interesting, and for me, when I watched this when I was a younger lad, it was one of my first introductions to media literacy, like looking at advertisements and saying, what do they really say? What's really being said in this TV show I'm watching? Like what, put on the sunglasses is something, when I teach some types of classes, I'll tell students here. So that's a pretty interesting part. But I hope if the one thing you maybe recognized is obey. If you recognize obey, you've probably seen it on T-shirts, posters. You've heard of this before, and that is something made popular or famous by Shep Fairey. And we talked a little bit about him. You recognize the image with, this is Andre the Giant, and it says Obey, and it's his brand. He's the guy who did the Obama Hope image that we talked about a couple weeks back. And so I want to just kind of look at some Shepard Fairey art. Shepard Fairey, wink, hint, nudge, does not benefit from fair use. His works are not, they're satirical and they're not parody. However, he's been able to basically use work that exists in the public domain, and he's been able to exploit certain types of propaganda, certain works that exist in the public domain for his pieces, for his t-shirts. And he's, a multi-millionaire, $15-20 million of worth, and we'll talk a little bit about the inter-ethics about his works amongst artists. But here you can see, this is Big Brother. So you can see, first I'll show you the Shepard Fairey version here, just the image that he's used. He's put, you can see like he does his style, and then of like collage stencils, sort of Warhol-esque stuff. And then he makes prints and he mass produces it, puts it on shirts. This actually comes from an adaptation of George Orwell's 1984, and this is a British adaptation from 1956. I believe that what happened is that film fell into the public domain, and so he was able to use it. So he was able to use this image that's used throughout that film of Big Brother. So again, like Shepard Fairey's work is often critical of consumption, often critical of authority, all these things, and and critical of like war and violence, and he's always taking, art that he can and repurposing it for, in a new way. And that's what public domain is supposed to be for. I mean, that's really the value of it, is how can you take something old and make it like relevant for now, Here's some Soviet propaganda you can see, and then in the middle are the Shep Fairey pieces. Again, these are from the early 20th century, again, and from Russia or Soviet Union at that time, which obviously the United States did not recognize the copyright of the Soviet Union at that time, and they'd be in the public domain anyways. So again, he just used some Soviet propaganda. He uses a lot of Chinese propaganda, so you can see the image on the right, which is going to be the Chinese propaganda, war propaganda, and then he just puts some roses in the guns, so he uses part of it, okay, etc. And again, this is from the late 60s, and it's from China. Did not recognize the copyright of China in the 60s. I don't even know if we do now, really, but definitely not in the 60s, so it's in the public domain. This is Vers Sacrum by Coleman Moser. It's from 1901. So you can see the piece here, and then you can see Shepard Fairey adopted it for his piece, Obey Propaganda. And again, it's from 1901. It's in the public domain, and he used it as part of his work. This is Chaplin's One Big Union, again from 1917. We know that's in the public domain. You can see the art. It's about labor, working class, blue collar solidarity, proletariat solidarity, and unification. Very symbolic. And then he used it in this T-shirt, and he used it verbatim. I mean, he literally just put it in there, threw a lightning bolt in there. And it has maybe a new meaning, in this context, but like he has every right to do that. That's what the public domain is for. This is an interesting case. So I'm going to show you this image. This is from the Young Lords from 1971. The Young Lords were a New York City, primarily New York-based group, kind of like the Black Panthers, and they worked with the Black Panthers and kind of adopted a lot of the same mentality, but they were about primarily because there's a lot of Puerto Ricans in New York, a lot of New Yorkers, and they were advocating for the freedom an independence of Puerto Rico from the United States, very heavily. You know, and anyways, they put out this piece, and this piece, you know, you can see the Shepard Fairey version of it, and he just took straight up. Now, typically, this could be protected by by copyright, but the issue here was that during this time period, right, in the 70s and before, up until 1988, actually, you had to have a copyright notice on your work. It needed to say C circle, so the copyright notice, and then your name. If you published a work without a copyright, so only for published works. So if you just, you know, if you made a sketch or a drawing or a painting and you just put it in your closet, it's still protected by copyright. But if you published it, if you showed it somehow, if you mass reproduced it, like a poster or whatever, that's considered publication. If you did not have a copyright notice on it, your work fell into the public domain. So he used it. This is a piece from the 30s. I'll show you the Yellowstone National Park piece. And then we have the Shepard Fairey version, which is about, you know, the war in Iraq during the early 2000s, where he, you know, changes the geyser, you know, and as a symbol of dropping bombs, etc. And he makes an anti-war piece. Again, this is from the 1930s, not in the public domain, but it was made by a government agency, a federal government agency, right? And so we know anything made by the federal government is in the public domain because our tax dollars paid for that. So I think the key here, though, when I ask a question about plagiarism, what is plagiarism in art? You know, is Shepard Fairey a plagiarist? Now, listen, that's basically using other people's work without credit and citing it as your own. Yeah, he is. He's using shit from the public domain and calling it his own. But he can do that. Now, the reason why the plagiarism is even an issue, it's just in art. Other artists fucking hate this dude. Probably because he has quite a bit of money, but he's also a dick. He's not a nice dude. But within art, you know, certain art groups, whatever, if you're a graffiti writer, street artist, whatever, there's like rules, you know, like intercultural rules that you establish for practice. And one of them is not to like take other people's art. And so he's been critiqued pretty heavily for that within art. But from a legal perspective, it's totally fair use, not fair use, it's totally public fair, or not copyright infringement, because it's all this stuff's in the public domain. You know, and so again, I mean, the dude's worth 15 million more, probably more now. It also shows the value of a rich public domain, having lots of raw ingredients from our past, right? From the past of society that you can shape and mold, take that clay and shape and mold it into something that has meaning now and make fucking money off of it. You know, so he was able to do that. And again, like a lot of people don't like it, you know. You can see these images here. On the left, you're gonna have the Shepard Fairey Obey, and then on the right, you're gonna have Baxter Orr, who's a street artist from Austin, Texas, who got sued by Shepard Fairey for this. So they were making a critique. Baxter Orr was making a critique of Shepard Fairey, you know, in his work, and the fact that, you know, he's made a lot of money off of other artists and stuff like that, and he got sued by Shepard Fairey. So again, why a lot of people don't really like him.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum. Oh, shit.